Hey, how are you? Welcome to the Friendship News Hour presented to you by Bummer Dude Media. Today is August the 16th, 2022. My name is Frank and his name is Alex. What's up, dude?
Hello, man. Long time no see.
Yeah, real long time. Hey, I gotta say, dude, you clean up well.
Thank you. You as well, man.
You don't always present yourself as the sharpest cat, the sharpest tool in the shed, but you get a little beard cut, you get a little suit on you, splash a little Sex Panther on your neck.
Exactly. Beautiful ceremony, man, all around. We're talking about Michael Lopez and now Paulina Lopez's wedding out in San Diego this past weekend. And, dude, it was beautiful, man. They did it like in La Jolla, which is still San Diego, right? It's not like a separate city? It is. Okay. So an area of San Diego, and it's just like up on the cliffs. You're on the edge of the world, it feels like. And like, man, I don't know if I'll ever be to a nicer wedding than that. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet.
Your best man speech was beautiful.
Thank you. It was my fourth best man speech I've given in my life.
Oh, wow.
And they've all been pretty good, I think. I thought they went pretty good. But I knew what I was going to say. I had it all kind of planned out in my head. I don't know why this one was so hard for me to formulate.
I mean, it's your best friend getting married, man. I could see why.
And like I had so many things to file through, you know, like how do you parse out what's important? I've known him now, let's see, we met in 2005 and it's 2022. So doing some quick math, that's 17 years.
Yeah. Damn.
Which is longer than I've been alive. So, or longer than half of my life.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
You don't have to give the whole speech or whatever, but the story you told during the speech was great, I thought. And I wondered if you could kind of share it with our audience, just as it kind of ties into friendship, and it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, definitely I can share it. So the reason I picked that story is it's really the only time Michael and I have ever had like a rift.
Oh, wow.
In our relationship. There's never been really a time where like there's been any sort of drama or anything like that. You know, we've always kind of just had each other's back no matter what. Mm-hmm. So the story goes, I'm kind of a newcomer into this friend group, right? The people that are in this friend group kind of know each other from elementary school, middle school. I don't know any of them really.
This is the start of high school?
This is the start of high school. Weird caveat. I actually took my first communion with Michael and Chris. Didn't even know who they were.
Wow. Crazy.
But they were just happened to be in the same grade class and I went to the same church. So we took communion in the same group, whatever. Anyway, so I'm new to this friend group. I don't really know who they are. They don't really know who I am. They probably thought I was a douche because I was. Man. And, the Frank of that time would not be as eager to stand up for himself as maybe the Frank of today. So kind of a pushover. And I think they sense that. So, they pick on me and, whatever. I'm not, playing victim here and anything. It's just kind of what it was. Mm-hmm. There's one day we were at rehearsal for Quinceañera, and the house where we would rehearse at had like a really nice pool in the backyard. So like after rehearsal, if it was a nice day, we'd go in the pool, swim and shit. And I'm outside the pool, sitting on this like bench. I think I was by myself. Maybe Chris was sitting next to me, but I think Michael and Chris took this bucket of ice and poured it all over my back. And I was super pissed and I was embarrassed and I was heated and like that frustrated, like you almost want to cry because you're just like so down. Mm-hmm. And so I had some friends that I actually had known from previous years there, and they were kind of like talking in my ear, telling me to go and get revenge, get back at him. Mm-hmm. And they were telling me to throw his clothes in the pool. So I threw his clothes in the pool, and then like the coward I was, I went inside, and I'm pretty sure like I went and watched like PGA golf with the grandfather of the like whoever owned the house. Like this is like as to avoid confrontation. And anyways, I got picked up and needed to figure out how it was that I was going to get to school the next day because Michael was my ride, and I feel like I kind of like in my head I was like the relationship's ruined. So I texted him. I sent like 3 groveling texts, just basically like, dude, I'm sorry. You would have done the same thing, blah, blah, blah. You guys were assholes. And he just sent me like a short text back saying, be there at 7:30 or 6:30, whatever. And so I went to his house, got in the car, didn't say a word to Michael or me. It was really quiet and awkward. And so I was like, fuck, like this might be the end of it, and thinking I'm going to have to find a new ride to school. And at some point during that day, Michael turned to me, showed me his cell phone, and it was a naked lady. The reason that it's such a meaningful statement was because it was 2006 And it takes a lot to get anything downloaded on your phone, especially a naked lady. So he just kind of turned to me. He was like, check this out. And that was it. Like that was how we reconciled whatever rift that was. I think in my speech, I called them the boobs of friendship.
The breasts,
because that's what they were. Yeah. And since that time, literally since that time, Michael and I have been best friends, and there's been like no drama at all.
Yeah, it was great, man. And I think you told that story, and you said, "Little did I know that it would be." I think you said like the foundation of the best friendship in my life. And right when you said that, man, I thought I was about to see you cry. You were close, dude. I know you got choked up.
I definitely choked up a couple times, and it was funny because like I wasn't even thinking about the emotion of any of it. It just kind of hit me, and then like the only task was to like power through and give the speech. But yeah, it did get a little emotional, man. It's kind of, you never talk about your friend like that, like in front of them, you know, in front of people. So it does get emotional for sure.
In front of a room full of people that like feels like it's all their family and friends. Like it's all, it's just a bunch of love like radiating. So congratulations to them. They're out in Venice, Italy right now on their honeymoon. Very jealous.
Yeah. Really nice. I actually got a text from him this morning saying that he had the best continental breakfast that he's ever had in his life. So he's really living it up there in Italy. It's not necessarily a text I was hoping to get. But no, I'm sure they're having a great time.
No, so I saw something in the news about McDonald's, and just real quick before we get to actual news, but kind of just, I saw a picture and then a story, and I'm like, oh, McDonald's. And it got on my head, and I just kind of started being weird and looking into some things. So I wanted to show you a couple things really quick. All right, you see that menu there?
Oh, wow. Look at that.
That is the original McDonald's menu. And we were kind of talking off air. You obviously know that like they were founded, I think, in like 1940 by the McDonald's brothers. This is how the menu started, and this is how, when they were open in San Bernardino, things were cool, but they were just a one-off location. If you've seen the movie Founder, you probably know the story or someone familiar with it. But Ray Kroc, who was a mixer salesman, came through, a dude from Chicago, and saw how great it was, heard them kind of talking about franchising, got in their ear about it, made it happen. And in 1955, they opened the very first location of the franchise, which was here in Des Plaines, Illinois, right outside Chicago. This was the original menu. You could get a hamburger for 15 cents, a cheeseburger for 19 cents. They had like 8 or 9 things on this menu, and it was very, 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 very simple. Flash forward another like 20 years. This is the picture I saw that kind of got me down this rabbit hole. This is their menu in 1972, and it just made me think, like, I wish fast food places did this still, because I think now, like, their menus are so fucking big, and there's got salads and 30 different sandwiches and blah, 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 where it's like, to do it right, you just need the basics, man. Like, we don't need a full spread at a McDonald's. Like, I feel like this was like the best time of fast food because it was simple. It was a hamburger, a cheeseburger, French fries, pie, shake. I just thought this was wild, bro. Like, I can't even imagine things costing this much either.
50-cent filet of fish.
Yeah, right. Fucking Big Mac was 65 cents. That's insane. A shake, 35 cents. And they only had Coke, root beer, and orangeade. Like, come on. That's all you need. Don't give me all these options. Just straightforward.
Maybe a Sprite.
Maybe a Sprite.
Yeah, throw a Sprite in there.
That's true.
I hear you, man. This is the same. I mean, you might as well be looking at a menu of In-N-Out.
Yeah, exactly. Which I had this weekend. And it was probably my most favorite In-N-Out experience, actually. I want to tell you about that later. Okay, let me finish this, though. So, very simple. You know what you're getting. I'm sure it's really fresh because they're only making few things. One thing I didn't know about, the triple ripple ice cream cone. I have no idea what that is. I looked it up, and it's like a little Neapolitan. Oh. Looks delicious, kind of. Looks pretty good.
Hey, go back to that original McDonald's menu.
The very first one? Right here.
Listen to these descriptions. Tempting cheeseburger. A triple thick shake. A thirst-quenching Coke. And a full flavor orange drink.
They've all got adjectives.
Delightful root beer.
Refreshing cold milk. Great for a hot day.
I thought that was interesting. That, you know, like we don't, we're not as descriptive anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. It's like, what the fuck do you want?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know what you're getting. Yeah, like you've lost all. Like the root beer is no longer delightful. It's just a root beer.
It's just root beer. That's right.
You know?
So, you know, it made me think of like a simpler time. I'm sure that they were delivering. It made me think like probably better food because of the time that it was.
I promise you, it's 1,000% lower quality than food we're eating today.
You think so? That's what I was kind of wondering. I'm like, was it better because it was a smaller operation, smaller menu, blah, 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 blah. And then like in the 80s and 90s, did they get to all the artificial shit that they got in trouble for? Or do you think even from its inception, like we're eating better food today?
I'd have to imagine that if we're cranking out microwave cookbooks in the 60s, then we're like all about whatever artificial whatever. And well into the 70s. And there's probably less regulation back then, so they could do whatever they want. You know, cow hooves and, you know, pig snouts in your burger. You know, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying, like, I would bet a large amount of money that in the 70s, the food was of a lower quality.
Yeah, I believe it. So, yeah, and then you get to the 80s, and that's when they started adding, I think, 83. They partnered with Tyson, and they started doing chicken McNuggets. And from there, like, the menu just exploded to what it is today, obviously. But I bring that up because there was a story out of Georgia that just happened over the weekend where a frustrated customer, due to waiting too long for food, then they didn't scream out, you know, he didn't hear his number, or they didn't say his number, they didn't give him a receipt. So basically his food got cold. This dude gets really pissed, throws his food at the people behind the counter. He calls the cops. They call the cops. The cops show up. And it turns out that this guy was charged for felony murder in 2018 and failed to appear in court. So he had a warrant out for his arrest. He's calling the police to his location.
Oh, my God.
And then once he's confronted talking to the cops, kind of probably gets the idea that he's fucked. He ends up running from them. And there was a short pursuit where he eventually got caught at an apartment building when he was trying to break into somebody else's house, and is now sitting in prison. I don't even think they gave him any kind of bail or anything like that. But this dude's name is Antoine Sims. He's 24. The dumbest thing you can ever think of. Like, you're calling the cops about cold fries and then you go on a run. It just blew my mind. So it like got me down the weirdest McDonald's wormhole I've ever gone through.
The American criminal.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring it up because once I started looking at those menus, I'm like, man, like it just seemed like such a simpler time. Like if they could get back to that, man, it's just now it's just like I don't need 50 options when I go to eat McDonald's, you know, just make it simple.
I don't even eat McDonald's. I'm not a fan. Never really have been.
No.
You know what ruined it for me? When we were kids, we would go to the beach, you know, Saturday, Sunday, day to waste or whatever. So we go to the beach. And my mom would go and pick up like 40, 39-cent cheeseburgers.
Nice.
Because I think it was Sundays and Wednesdays. They were 39 cents. We just grab like 2 big bag full of cheeseburgers and go to the beach and just mow down on shitty McDonald's cheeseburgers. I don't know. McDonald's was never like, I was never like super impressed with McDonald's. I always thought it was shit food. I always thought it was kind of gross.
Yeah. I honestly think they've stepped their game up a lot in the last few years. I would tend to agree with you, but my childhood, once my parents got divorced, my childhood was like heavily, I don't know if you could tell, but heavily influenced by fast food because my mom, I'd have, you know, dinners all the time. She'd cook for us, family dinners. We're sitting around. My dad was a lot more on the run. So it was a lot of pizza, a lot of Taco Bell, a lot of fast food. So it's just like I grew, even if maybe I didn't like them, I grew to love all these things, or just, you know, go to them all the time. So
hey, you might be onto something there. Because I remember telling this to Jacqueline one day, and I've thought it for a while, that it was immediately after my parents got divorced that I became a really, really chubby kid.
Same.
Is that true for you too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a twig, bro. Like a twig. I was a skinny kid. And I remember my parents telling me, oh, you can eat anything you want. You'll be fine. You know, which was true until I was about 9 years old, 10 years old.
Do you think that's just chance, or do you think they're at all related?
I think they're related for sure.
Yeah. I agree.
Because, and this is an indictment on my parents. This happened to everybody. I just don't think we were like as aware back then, but there was no limitations to my diet, bro. I ate whatever the fuck I wanted, basically whenever I wanted to.
Yep.
Soda all the time. Like I said, fast food. Like I don't really like McDonald's, but I craved fast food. Jack in the Box burgers, whatever, you know, bacon burgers, pizza, burritos, carne asada, fries, all that, dude. That's all I ever wanted to eat was like really tasty, delicious, shitty food. Right. So yeah, I've often contended that that's what the catalyst was for, and like, I'm sure as a kid I didn't know it, but there was I knew there was a ton of stress. But as a kid, I'm sure I didn't know that I was like trying to medicate that stress by eating.
Well, it's that, but also like, I feel like my parents would like take us out. Like, you want to go get ice cream? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, because like they know you're going through it. So like they want to help you with like treats or whatever. And it's like long-term effects of that are very questionable. But
yes.
That is interesting. I've never thought about that before.
Have you not? No, I definitely thought. It was one day I was looking at pictures, and like 1 year, baseball pictures, regular, normal, skinny looking, healthy kid. The next year, boom,
Boom.
boom, big fatty. Big fatty. And here's
awesome.
the thing about that. And the reason it doesn't affect me so much anymore, but like for a long time, dude, like I was incredibly self-conscious about my weight. And it wasn't like because I had anybody telling me that I was fat. I knew I was fat. Like I knew that I was chubby. I knew that I had rolls, and I you know, it was never anything that I was like super confident about. And I don't hold any resentment, but like I just look back and I'm thinking, well, what the heck happened? Because I was like really not a fat kid. And then when I looked at these pictures, I'm thinking like, well, what could have happened? And sure enough, like it coincides directly with my parents' divorce. So I'm like, huh, there's got to be something there.
All right. So in the news today, we should get to the news. Stop talking about our fat childhoods. This is something you don't hear that often, but Donald Trump is in the news today.
Hey, you know
today,
what?
Right?
Honestly, you don't. We don't really talk about Donald Trump all that much.
Not anymore. That's true. Yeah. Since
we
he's
haven't
left,
had to.
I mean, yeah.
We haven't had a reason to.
Thankfully.
And now we have a reason to. And I'm kind of upset about it. This is Attorney General Merrick Garland talking about the FBI raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence.
First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken. Third, let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked.
We'll get to that last point in a minute. Let's get to the facts first before we start talking about all the other shit. Donald Trump leaves the White House, and in a haste, he takes items with him. The National Archives of the United States keeps record of everything that goes on within the White House. All documents need to be preserved. It's very thorough, and they keep everything. Okay, that doesn't mean they're going to declassify everything. That just means they keep everything. He takes about 15 boxes of things back with him to Mar-a-Lago. And the National Archives had been negotiating with Trump since his departure from the White House and his lawyers to return those items, because those items technically don't belong to him, or at least they need to be logged by the National Archives before he can regain control of them. There's a bunch of different processes, but in any case, it was a matter of national security that they received those back, just to make sure that there was not a matter of national security problem. Yeah. So he sends back, in this past February, he sends back 15 boxes of items to the National Archives. And there was like a letter, it was like the original letter that Barack Obama had left him after Obama left in 2016. A correspondence from Kim Jong-un of North Korea. And even that, do you remember when there was like that big debate about, there was like a storm in the South, and he had said something about the storm that everyone said was inaccurate. And then he put like a big poster board of the storm, and he was writing with it with a Sharpie. Do you remember that? You know what? Love or hate him, that fucking guy was so entertaining. Anyway, he had that too. So he sent all that back. But when he sent that stuff back, there were still items that were missing. Mm-hmm. That's what prompted this raid. So there were still items from the items that were missing originally that he did not return. And so I guess the FBI had reason to believe that those items were a matter of national security, and that them being out into the public without any knowledge of where they might end up or how they might be used was a matter so significant that they needed to go and raid the house of a former president. Now, they absolutely could be as serious as they're making them out to be. But I have my doubts. First doubt, why did it take Merrick Garland weeks to come to the decision of whether or not to raid Trump's home? Because he came out and said it himself that he contemplated this decision for weeks. If it was that dangerous and it was that big of a matter of national security, how could you have 2 weeks to debate? True. That to me doesn't make any sense at all. Okay. So here's what I think is going to happen. One of two things. Donald Trump goes to jail, or Donald Trump becomes president. There was no in between. There was only one of those two things. Because if you were going to raid his personal residence for documents that you think might be a matter of national security, and an indictment is not going to follow that, then you have just reignited the entire Trump base. You've just lit a giant fire right under their asses. And nobody was talking about this guy. I mean, Look, dude, I run in some pretty conservative circles. Nobody was talking about Donald Trump. Everybody was so willing to let this guy just go. Thank you for your service. We appreciate all that you've done. Please leave.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw an article the other day talking about this upcoming election, saying that, at least from this writer's perspective, what they thought the most interesting ticket would be a Newsom versus DeSantis ticket, where it'd bring in some youth, bring in fresh faces.
You bet.
And so, I mean, that kind of surprised me, because to me, I've always like, okay, Donald Trump's coming back. But I'm like, maybe the party is trying to move away from him and distance themselves from January 6th and all the other shit. Like, maybe... I mean, DeSantis is an interesting choice, but definitely one that would strike up passion, as is Newsom. So, and then this happens. It's like, fuck.
The way it looked before this happened was probably Donald Trump was going to win the nomination, probably. And the reason for that was because he has way too much of the boomer base, right? He's locked up a lot of that generation. They're set in their ways. They don't like to think too much. They know who Trump is. They like Trump. Okay. It would have taken an effort from DeSantis to unseat him for the nomination of the Republican Party. And that was looking more and more like like something that was going to happen. After this, it's like, dude, how?
Yeah.
Let's go down the list real quick. The former President Obama, then president, and his administration spies on the Trump campaign. Hillary Clinton and her campaign pay a company to dig up a fabricated dossier, turn into the intelligence community of the United States, prompting a 2-year investigation into Donald Trump, finding absolutely nothing that warrants an indictment. Okay? This man has been through 2 impeachments. And you're going to tell me now he's broken the law, now we can finally nab him? If you're going to go and raid this guy, you have to have the goods. Because if you're just going to keep coming for him and not have anything, then all you're going to do is piss off people who are rightfully upset that this looks political. As much as you can tell me this isn't political, and that the FBI has blinders on, and that they're going to go and they're going to hold everybody to account, it can't be looked at in any other lens outside of being a political hit. And if you're not going to indict, then how can anybody see it differently?
And what I'm failing to understand too in all this, and I saw fucking Hillary Clinton with her goddamn, took this as an opportunity to make merch, so she must be maybe trying to make some money or something.
Oh,
but
the email one?
Yeah, what about the emails? But to me, it's like, you were Secretary of State or whatever, like when that shit happened and your emails, all that shit happened. How is that not very similar to this? Like, there's got to be tons of confidential shit in there that found their way into whoever's hands, and there's nothing like, but Trump takes documents, some that are like letters to him personally. I don't understand why he would need to share that with the National Archives in the first place. But he gets his house raided and now be facing charges. I just don't understand. It's just hypocrisy to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, because put yourself in the shoes of Merrick Garland for a second. These documents are outstanding, right? You would have to make a character judgment, fine, as you might, about Donald Trump, that if national security secrets are in his hands, then that spells danger for America and he's broken the law, right? Those two things exist. You would have to make that assumption based off of a character judgment of Donald Trump.
Which is like a somewhat fair assessment.
I can understand it, right? You can understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Donald Trump. He's an ass. Okay? But just by making that character judgment and going forward with this, then automatically, boom, you're saying that this is political. And you might say, well, what does it matter? If he broke the law, he broke the law. It doesn't matter his political affiliation, this, that, and the other. But it does, because he's the leading candidate for a presidential election. And this happens right before the midterms. So you say, okay, maybe this isn't political, but everything leading up to it, all the little crumbs of this trail kind of lead it to be political. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is about the FBI. Okay? The FBI is not to be trusted. So if they're the ones raiding Donald Trump's residence, then you could be forgiven for having a healthy dose of skepticism about the FBI and what their motives are, right? We covered it pretty concisely when it happened, but there was an attempt, air quote, attempt on the life of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And we come to find out that the people who were in this group that were plotting to kidnap Governor Whitmer, more of them were FBI agents than weren't, right? 7 FBI agents versus 6 citizens. So there were 7 informants inside of a group that were, quote, plotting to kidnap Governor Whitmer. That's just like one example of hundreds. Some of the more egregious ones, I don't know if you are familiar with the Branch Davidian scandal that happened back in the 80s, 90s. Are you familiar with this?
Mm-mm.
Oh, man. This is a whole podcast in and of itself. There were a group of religious, you can call them cult, you can call them whatever, right? It was a group of people, they called themselves Branch Davidians. They had a compound in Texas. They had tons of weapons and tons of ammo, like stockpiles of it all. The ATF tried to go in and raid them and it failed. So then the FBI came in and they seized, they had a standoff with these Branch Davidians for like 51 days. There was a fire in this compound. And the FBI pretty much like herded these people so that they didn't leave the compound as it was burning. 70 some odd people died, babies, women, children, men,
what?
Whole bunch of them. Yeah, dude, it's fucking wild. It's absolutely insane. And this was the FBI. They all burned to death. And then the FBI agents took pictures on top of, the piles of rubble after this all happened, like they did something great for, American safety or whatever. Absolutely insane. These are the people that the FBI were aware of before they committed their individual heinous acts. The Fort Hood terrorist, Nidal Hassan, you remember that guy drove into Fort Hood, shot a few people, killed them. This was back in like 2013. Mm-hmm. Yeah, FBI knew about them. FBI was warned about the Boston Marathon bombers. They knew about them. FBI was warned about the Parkland shooter. They knew about him. The FBI knew about the Pulse nightclub shooter. The FBI was warned about a man in Virginia shouting Allah Akbar while stabbing a couple, but failed to stop him. Under James Comey, the FBI authorized informants to break the law 22,800 times in just 4 years. So look, dude, they're running their own show and they're not to be trusted. And we can, there's countless examples of why the FBI is just, becoming more and more corrupt. So you could understand that people see that the FBI is raiding the former president's home and they're not releasing the affidavit. Right. The affidavit is the list of what was taken at the compound at Trump's home. Now, what they're saying is that if they release this affidavit, then it leads. It shows the roadmap for the government's road to prosecution, and that it would dismantle their whole case against the former president. But if we're just going to take them at their word, then you could understand how there's absolutely no trust as it comes to this investigation. I'm not saying you have to be political when you're the FBI operating like this, but just saying that you're aware of what the political ramifications are, if you do this, is not enough. Like there needs to be 1,000% transparency. Mm-hmm. Like we've investigated this guy for so long. What could you possibly come up with now that you can bring an indictment and send him to prison? But I hope they do, man. I really, really do hope that they do, because that's the only way that I think that we'll be able to finally have some sort of trust again in the federal government, in our intelligence agencies. Finally somebody goes to jail. It wouldn't make me super stoked to see Trump go to jail, but like at least some politician would go to jail, and then we're setting a precedent that politicians can go to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the FBI was also tracking the guys that flew the planes into the trade centers as well. Like for a long time, for sure. For like years, they were tracking these people. Knew they lived in San Diego. Knew that they were living with another like known terrorist threat that was part of Al Qaeda. And it's like it's crazy how much they know, and then something happens. It's like, oh shit. Yeah. Like, how do they keep getting away with that?
Right. Just that. Oh shit. Where's the repercussions? Like, where are the heads on platters? Mm-hmm. Public humiliation or public firings or something. Just, this guy does not work in intelligence agencies anymore because are obviously not competent enough to do so.
Yeah. And then Bruce Reinhardt, the guy that made the call on the warrant, wasn't there some like connections with him and Jeffrey Epstein too?
Yeah, there were. So this guy has a weird history. First of all, yes, he's a judge, but in this capacity, he was acting as a magistrate, which is like a step below a judge. And that's normal procedure. If you're going to go, get a search warrant to look in my home for something that you think that I have. For the former president, you should probably have like a judge. Guy's title is judge, not federal magistrate. Anyways, in 2008, Bruce Reinhardt is a U.S. attorney, okay, in Florida. There's a case that comes against one Jeffrey Epstein. Bruce Reinhardt is working aggressively to get a sweetheart deal for Epstein. He quits his job as U.S. attorney, and the very next day is hired by aides of Jeffrey Epstein, his secretary, and then I think his pilot and a couple other people who were close to him hire him. Right? He just spent months working a case against Epstein, quits his job, and then is hired by Epstein's aides as their defense attorney, and then defends these people in court.
Seems weird.
What the fuck is that, dude?
They got
I'm
him,
not
bro.
trying to put on my tinfoil hat or nothing, but like make that make sense.
They fucking turned him, man.
Dude.
They blackmailed him, or he took a trip to the island and had too much fun, and then they're like, we own you now. I bet you.
Something, man. Something like that. This is in 2011. This guy, Reinhardt, swore under penalty of perjury that he had nothing to do with Epstein's investigation and had zero information on his case, but his supervisors filed a court paper contradicting the claim the Miami Herald reported. Quote, while Bruce E. Reinhardt was an assistant U.S. attorney, he learned confidential, non-public information about the Epstein matter, joined Epstein's payroll shortly after important decisions were made limiting Epstein's criminal liability, and improperly represented Epstein victims in follow-on civil suits. Plaintiffs in the Jane Doe's number 1 and number 2 versus United States case alleged. Reinhardt reportedly quit working for the U.S. Attorney's Office on New Year's Day of 2008 and started working for Epstein on January 2nd, 2008. His clients included Epstein's pilots, his scheduler, and a woman called Nadia Marcinkova, who Epstein described as his Yugoslavian sex slave.
Oh.
All right. So at the very least, this guy is just a complete dirtbag. And, what bearing it has on anything that has to do with this case, I don't know if it has any at all, other than this U.S. government, man. It's as corrupt as you think it is, obviously. Ugh, goodness gracious.
Gross.
So we'll see. The next step in this is going to be, whether or not this affidavit gets released. And if it doesn't, then we'll have to wait a lot longer to figure out what they took. But we do know that they did take his passports.
Oh, so he can't leave.
Well, they gave him back, but what we're able to have visibility in is the search warrant itself. So the search warrant was so broad that it claimed that these FBI agents could take anything that was in proximity to the materials that they were looking for, as like casting a wide net and a failsafe. So you find a box of documents that you're looking for, boom, found them. And then right next to it, you find a smaller box with like passports. And so then they had jurisdiction to take all of that. And then Trump was like, what the fuck? You took my passports? Please give those back. And then they gave them back. But they had authority to seize his passports. This is the former president of the United fucking States, dude. I know, man. Like, I don't know, dude. He's got to go to prison. He's got to go to prison, or it's going to be Trump, DeSantis, and you're going to see 12 years of pure conservative rule.
You think so?
Because you just couldn't let him go. Just let him die. Just let him wither in the sun. Fuck, dude. I don't understand it. When you're a kid and somebody was fucking with you and being a bully, what were your two options? Punch them in the face or just ignore them?
What about tell their mom?
Or well, I don't know if that applies here, Al. But just let him wither away. You've already excommunicated him from basically all platforms. You're just igniting more furor over Trump. And I don't understand it, man. Just let him be.
Yeah. Dude, I would have loved to read Obama's letter to him and his letter to Biden. I'm sure if he even left one for Biden, I could see him. Yeah, I could see him not, or just like, you stole the election, piece of shit. But I would have loved, because, Barry, we have our things about Barry, and, things I liked about his presidency, a lot of things I didn't. But like, he was a pretty stand-up dude, I would say, as far as honoring the office of the presidency. So I'm sure that letter was somewhat, classy. I'm sure there's like some tongue-in-cheek shit there where he's taking shots at him, but God, I'd love to read that. Is that going to be like public record then?
I don't know. I don't know that any of those letters are. But this isn't this isn't a new phenomenon, taking things from the White House when your presidency's over, although it's not allowed. When the Clintons left in 2001, they took like $250,000 worth of furniture and gifts that were given to them while they were in the White House. And they were like, yeah, it's mine. It was given to us. And then the government was like, no, it's not. But if it was given to you, then you're not allowed to take it, because you're only allowed to take gifts under $400 worth of value. So then they had to pay for that furniture that they were gifted.
Damn. He's like, yeah, Monica gave me a great blowjob on that couch. I need to take that couch. Good memories.
And then Obama took, I don't know, some untold millions of documents, and like, he didn't like steal them. There was a process he went through, and he took them to this field office in Chicago and promised that he was going to make them all public, and he never did. And people were like really upset about it. So it just sounds like Trump took these things. It sounds like it's going to hinge on whether or not he formally declassified them, because he can declassify whatever he wants, right? He has the power.
Even now, or you're saying as sitting president?
He also has pretty broad powers as a non-president in that respect. But for him to legally be in possession of those documents, it sounds like he would have had to formally declassify them before he took them. But we don't know what they are. They're claiming there's like some nuclear secrets, and that the threat is he's going to sell them off. And I don't know, man. Look, like I said, I hope he goes to prison, because if he doesn't go to prison, he's going to go to the White House. There's right now that is the bed that we've made here. I mean, really, there's no other option. I don't see prison or president. That's is one of the two. And so again, to make a compelling case, and fucking A, dude, they've tried it 3 times already. So forgive me for not really believing they're acting in good faith here. I just think it's just smells of a political witch hunt.
Yeah, agreed. What was going on down in Tijuana this week, man? I heard some news was coming out of there.
Yeah, not a whole lot of good things happening in Tijuana this weekend. This is in Oxxo, which is like a Mexican 7-Eleven.
Oh, shit. Got a fire right in the middle of the store? Was that like a Molotov? Holy shit. Just popping shots in a 7-Eleven parking lot.
Yeah, so that was going on quite a bit in Mexico this past weekend, in the border town of Tijuana, and also in Rosarito and in Juarez. This is the border crossing into Mexico from the United States into Juarez. Dude, not a single car.
Whoa.
It's usually not very heavy going into Mexico. It can be, but it usually isn't. It's never like this, where there's not a single car to be found.
So that wasn't like they shut down the border. It was just no one wanted to go.
That's correct. Yeah. Wow. So last time I saw it like that was during COVID. It's all cartel based. Mexican officials say that cartel assailants hijacked and burned at least 24 vehicles and put up roadblocks around the state Friday evening. Messages also began circulating on social media, purportedly from the Jalisco New Generation cartel, declaring a curfew in Tijuana and warning residents to go home or risk being attacked. Before this weekend, there was violence in Juarez, where that video is from. 11 people were killed. And this is just, I would say it's growing, but I don't even know that it's growing. It's just a constant flow of, really, really, really terrible things happening in and around these border towns in Mexico due to cartel activity. There's some half a dozen journalists that have been killed this year, just straight executions because they've been talking out and writing about the cartel and the violence and things that are going on. So it's just a constant battle struggle between the federal police in Mexico and the cartels. And really, all the federal police in Mexico can hope for is that they keep regular citizens safe. And that the people involved in this stuff, it's kind of fair game, do it. If you're going to get involved in it, you know what is going to happen. But when they being the cartel, go into these cities and start attacking civilians and businesses, obviously they're trying to send a message, and that message is that, you cannot fuck with us.
Why has the cartel been allowed to be around and with such the presence they have for years and years and years. Like, I don't understand. Like, is it because it's a net positive for Mexico and Colombia, like just in general in South America, like because they're making money? And I mean, it's an import-export business with drugs and guns and shit. I get that, but like, I don't think Mexico really sees that money. Those families do. You know, it's like, how are they still around? How is not FBI or whoever the fuck, like all these forces joined up to take them down as if they were a terrorist organization?
Because they can. That's why. The only reason that they're doing this is because they can. Mexico doesn't allow citizens to carry weapons. Mm-hmm. So the cartel carries weapons. The cartel has more weapons than does the Mexican government. And so they are outmanned and they are armed. And so the cartels control everything because they can.
And the cartels don't attack us because they know that then we'd get involved and destroy them.
Attack who?
Like,
who's us?
Like America. Like, I don't understand why.
Why would they attack their number one customer?
True. But I just feel like we get involved in so many other, international things that aren't really our problem. Whereas like a huge gang on our border facilitating the passage of drugs, people, and guns. Like, why wouldn't we want to have that more in check or just like gone? And instead we're in fucking with Al Qaeda and ISIS and all these other people over here, like that are a world away from us.
Well, it's interesting you say that because that's what Donald Trump first campaigned on, and he was called a racist.
Oh, true.
You're right.
Yeah,
we should. I have no argument with you, brother.
It's been
absolutely.
Years and years.
It's asinine, and it kills so many Americans. I don't know the numbers, but it's got to be on par with the amount of Mexicans that are killed to facilitate the drug trade. So I mean, look, to me, when you hear these stories, it's the very best case for why we have a Second Amendment.
Yeah,
because that is what we're trying to defend against. And the only reason that we don't have to defend against it is because people know that if they try and fuck around, they're going to find out what's on the business end of an automatic rifle.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you were able to arm an American or a Mexican citizen to a man with multiple weapons, this cartel business goes away real quick.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be great if we could do something about it, but that would entail large scale cooperation from the Mexican government against their own citizens.
But I think they would want that though, right? Like, why would you want the mafia running?
Because everything's corrupt, dude. Because they're in
everything.
They're in the government. They're in the police. They're
What do you do at that point?
Short of going to war, which we could, but why would we want to do that to our neighbors? Many of whom reside in this country.
Yeah,
it's a tricky situation, man. Mm-hmm. It is a tricky situation. Heartbreaking. I used to. My dad used to live in TJ, and we used to go every other weekend. And this was in the height of the Arellano Felix cartel, which was, one of the worst eras of, Mexican cartel history. It was really brutal, very ugly, incredible amounts of violence. And there were wanted posters of those two brothers everywhere. And you'd cross the border and there's dogs in every line sniffing every car. Wow. And guys with big giant guns rolling around. I mean, it was dangerous stuff. So I don't know, man, like it's kind of like, anything in the United States where, gun violence or drug use or whatever. How do you eradicate it without eradicating the people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the answers.
This one piqued my interest here on your queue here. All great topics today, but the only thing it says here is sleepovers. And I'm very curious to what that means.
Yeah. How do you feel about sleepovers? Like
I guess it depends in what capacity. Like, I mean, is my kid sleeping over with like another friend, or is my kid sleeping over with a youth minister?
Yeah, with a friend.
Sure, yeah, pro. I think social. I mean, depending at the age and whatnot, and who the kid in the family is, like I'd want to know all that shit. But I think the social aspect of it and growing the relationships with people is very beneficial for a developing child.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring it up is there's an article I was reading about how Gen Xers and millennials have kind of grown up sleeping over at friends' houses, but they may be the generation that kind of stops that phenomenon. So I first heard about this kind of in the book, the Tiger Mom book. You know what I'm talking about?
Tiger Mom, no.
Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. And it's about this Asian American mom who grew up with a crazy strict mom, who became that crazy strict mom and then defends her strictness. And she has a absolute zero tolerance policy on her kids sleeping over at other kids' houses. And I'm thinking, I wonder why. But then I started thinking about the sleepovers I would have. First time I got drunk, sorry, Mom, 15 years old, sleeping over at a friend's house.
Same.
Yeah. It's like, and that's just what I'm willing to say publicly of what I've done during sleepovers. Like I would get into a lot of trouble.
Would you ever stay up and watch like the BET Uncuts with all your friends, or wait for the Girls Gone Wild commercials to come on?
Wait for the Girls Gone Wild commercials, or like, go sneak into the parents' room and grab the porno DVDs, or, like whatever it was that we could get, like, dude.
Go TV in. But don't you think that kind of shit, whether your parents approve of it or not, like whatever, but like, don't you think that like that kind of shit like helps mold you, or like helps like, it's maybe part of the experience of being a teenager? Like, I think if you would like live iron fist by the book, by your parents' rules, I think you miss out on a lot. Like, I think that's kind of part of the human experience a little bit, to like fuck up sometimes and like learn from that, instead of just being told like, no, that's wrong, that's that, but like never knowing, I guess. Is that like a hippie mentality, like to think that way? Like, I think I think a lot of that shit, whether it's right or wrong, it is for the overall like good of the experience of a human.
Yeah, this article kind of goes down the whole road of the advent of technology these days, and what kids have access to, and what they're able to do, and the things that like the parents may not see. And I don't know, it's really tricky, because my first initial reaction would be like, no sleepovers. You can avoid a whole bunch of other stuff by saying no to sleepovers. But then you'd have to, like you said, like kind of rule by an iron fist, right? Like, I don't want my kid having social media, right? Like, I just don't think that. I think it's a net negative. Like, I'm off Instagram right now, and I'm not missing out on anything. Matter of fact, I do believe that my life's a little bit better. I don't think that I have nearly as much anxiety or as much stress, or have wasted as much time as I would have had I had Instagram.
Right.
If I choose that, not let my kid have Instagram, then, what am I going to do? Avoid it at all costs? Then if I don't want them to have Instagram, then they certainly can't go to a sleepover, because what's at a sleepover? All the things that I don't want them to have. You know what I mean? So then it's like, then you would be ruling with an iron fist. And is that good?
Yeah. Like, how do you patrol that? Do you check their phone every day to see if Instagram's on there?
No, because you don't give them a phone.
You just don't give them a phone until they're 18?
No. Or if you give them a phone, it has phone capabilities, and that's it. Texting capabilities.
Oh, you're talking
no
about
internet or whatever.
Yeah, give them like one of them old phones, baby.
There you go. learn how to text with 3 digits on one key.
Flip phones, yes, fuck yeah.
But like I don't know, man. Like, I'm kind of talking on my ass here, because I don't have a kid yet, and this is not going to be something I'm going to worry about, for a few years. But I will have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. And when the topic of sleepovers come up, it's like, I can see how, it's no big deal. Come on, they're just gonna have fun. You remember what it was like being a kid. And then I remember what it's like being a kid, and it's like, yeah, but also I dodged a lot of bullets too. You know what I mean? Like I could have come out a lot more injured than I did. And I don't think that has anything to do with anything other than like pure dumb luck, right? That I wasn't the one. So I don't know, man. It's all very tricky. But I just thought that was interesting that there's a trend of parents in our generation saying no to sleepovers.
Yeah, that is weird. That is really weird.
But it would certainly give me more. It would certainly give me more pause. And I wouldn't be so anxious to be like, yes, you can do that. Because I remember when I wanted to go stay at my buddy's house, and my mom was like, absolutely not. And like, I fought with her.
Oh, really?
She didn't know the kid. I knew who he was.
Yeah, that's where I would be as a parent, more apprehensive. It's like, if I don't know the kid, don't know what the fuck's going on at the house, like, no, like I feel like that is where I would draw the line and whatnot. Like, I want to know that they're at least safe, and with people that like, with parents that give a fuck, if like, that would be the borderline,
but
like
here's
the
the
baseline.
Thing. I wouldn't have trusted me at 15. And I wasn't a bad kid, but I wouldn't have trusted me. So why would I trust my kid? Maybe he's not me, and he won't be. But like, why would I trust a 15-year-old in general? They're assholes, dude. They have an undeveloped brain, and all they want to do is have fun and do what they want to do. So of course, a 15-year-old is going to manipulate me into saying yes to going to a friend's house, especially if he knows there's going to be some debauchery there.
But don't you think, as a parent of a 15, like, you've been dealing with that motherfucker all month, and he's been a dickhead, and he's like, hey, can I go do this? And you're like, I can get a night free with me and my wife. And fucking, yeah, dude, go ahead. Get the fuck out of here.
Here's the way I see it. And maybe I'll change once I have a kid. I don't know. There's only two people in a child's life that are supposed to be rigid barriers for that kid, and that's his parents. Mm-hmm. So I'd probably always lean on saying no to something like that before saying yes.
Yeah, I could see that. I also think the more barriers you put up, though, the more curious that kid becomes, and when they're no longer barriered, could spin way, way worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like in terms of sleepovers, if you're gonna say no to a sleepover and then your kid turns 18, what's he gonna do? Like have a bunch of sleepovers because he missed? You know what I mean? Like it's just a sleepover.
I'm not going home for a month. Fuck you.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Like if, but the same argument with parents who say like, yeah, like I'll give my kid a taste of this. My mom used to say that. I'll let them taste this alcohol because if they don't taste it with me, they're gonna taste it with somebody else. It's not either or, it's and. Yes, I'll drink with you and then I will drink without you. You know what I mean? That's like, I'm not gonna not drink because you're giving me the alcohol. And I'm not sitting here telling my mom got me drunk or nothing. But like if she would go to a friend's house and she would bring us along and we're playing with their kids and they would like pour a drink, I'd ask my mom, can I try it? Just want to see what it tastes like. And she'd like give me a little tiny sip.
Flash forward 30 years, you're an alcoholic.
Exactly. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, but see, I do believe that if you crank down on your kid with like that kind of thing, like alcohol and drugs, and you're like just adamantly like abstinent, then that to me is like, okay, yeah, for sure. Then that's reverse psychology. All the kids can think about is like, oh, why are they so against this? Why are they so against this? I want to know.
Catholic girls with sex, bro. That's exactly what it is. Those girls all get to college, they're fucking freaks. I can attest to that. They just want to suck and fuck anything. It's been kept from you your whole life, I feel like.
Yeah.
Or there's this big taboo about it. So it's like, now I'm in college, I can do whatever the fuck I want, and I'm in a dorm with, blah, blah, blah. It's like, so it's like if they don't have any guidance in that area, I feel like it can go bad.
See, in that example, I blame the parents.
Because
not because they didn't introduce them to these topics, because they didn't do a good enough job. And they weren't as invested as they needed to be, because if you're going to send a kid off to college and they have the ability to just go buck wild, that means that all you were doing was like shielding them, but you weren't raising them. Like you were just saying, no, don't do this. Instead of saying like, hey, I'm never going to have control over what you do as soon as you leave this house. But I need you to know what these things are and why they're so acutely dangerous to you specifically.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
You know what I mean? Because if you just say like no, then you've not done anything, I think.
Yeah. Quick before we get out of here, we have to cover the soul crushing news that came out of San Diego this week. I'm sorry, sir. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. What do you? I don't know,
Moment
man.
of silence.
It's so frustrating. Fernando Tatis Jr. was handed down an 80-game suspension for PED use for taking a banned substance as prescribed by Major League Baseball, that he can't take it. He came out with something saying, hey, I had ringworm and I took this medication versus this medication. And they're two different medications, but they're off by like one letter. So he's like, oh yeah, I mixed them up. And then a bunch of doctors came and like, this is complete horseshit. You would never accidentally take this medication. And then his dad came out and said something like he had a haircut which caused a fungus, and he used this spray that had this colostebol steroid that he got popped for in it, regardless of what his excuse is. Even if he was taking it as a performance enhancer to get back from injury faster, doesn't matter. He is solely responsible for what he puts in his body. And he got popped with PEDs, and now he's out for 80 games. He will miss this entire season. He has a 13-year, $400 some odd million contract and has yet to play a full season in the majors. So that's all I have to say about Tatis Jr. The only thing that I hope happens is that he matures, is that he begins to, I don't know, become a man with with proper principles about how he goes about his life. He's only 23, so he's incredibly young. He's still probably top 5 baseball player when he's healthy. So I don't think Padres are going to move on him and get rid of him or anything.
Do you still have love for this man? Like as a diehard Padres fan, they just bring in soda. They're doing all these things that, to ramp up the season. And then this dude who got into a fucking motorcycle accident in the off season, another dumbass thing, goes and does this, like, do Padre fans, I know you can't speak for all of them, but do you still have a place in your heart for this man, believe in this man, want to see him in a Padres uniform?
Yeah, of course I do. But what I feel like, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm just a fan, and at the end of the day, that's all I am. But where it really gets me is that I'm a fan of the team, right? I like Tatis, but I'm a fan of the team. And so where this really hurts me is that it hurts the team. And like the team is super disappointed in him. And they're like coming out publicly and being like, this is, what the fuck, dude? Like,
I saw that, dude. The manager.
Everybody. And so if the team is not on your side, that has nothing to do with me. If you can get the team back in your good graces, then by all means, man, then you're fine with me. Then you've done what you needed to do. I don't want there to be like a souring between him and the fan base. And playing good baseball will fix all of that. But man, what I don't know. It hurts. It hurts me for him because you're so young and you don't want a young person to go through something like this. But hopefully this is what it takes to kind of kick him in the pants a little bit and buckle down. This opportunity is a little bit more fragile than you thought it was. You're not going to be this guy forever, and your window is limited, although it might be longer than most. So tighten that shit up a little bit.
So are the Padres done for the season? Like, are they wasting one of these years with Soto and all these other guys that they have, Darvish? Or is there still a shot? Like, could they beat the Dodgers in the NL and go to the series?
Their general manager, AJ Preller, he said something like, we formulated this team to win as is without him. That's not true. You're banking on him coming back. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, is the season over? Absolutely not. Could they make a run? Teams have won the World Series with less. So absolutely, they have a team that is capable of it. And I don't think that him coming back is necessarily like the key to us winning. But if you go Jurickson Profar, Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Manny Machado, that's your top four in your lineup, I'll take them over anybody,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're hoping for. So we won't see that until, I don't know, sometime May or June next year.
Well, I'm sorry, man. That was a bummer.
Fuck them. Go
bummer.
Padres.
Go Padres. Fuck yeah. Another thing I can get behind is drinking coffee. Drinking a good smooth cup of coffee is a treat all by itself, but when you can do that and help American heroes, it is that much better. Our sponsor, Gun Barrel Coffee, is proud to donate $1 from every item purchased to veterans and first responder charities all across our country. The way they do this is that they offer 14 different blends and roasts, which you can get in whole bean ground or single serve pods. And right now, as a friend of this ship, you can use the promo code FNH10. You'll save 10% at checkout when you buy their products at gunbarrelcoffee.com. That is promo code FNH10. Gun Barrel Coffee, damn good coffee, damn good cause.
Yeah, boy! Hit us up on Twitter at FriendshipNH. You can hit us up on Instagram and TikTok at Friendship News Hour. Same handle, both socials. And you can send us email, bummerdude.media@gmail.com, bummerdude.media@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time.